I think actually we're far from everyone in power accepting this, because if you look closely into British Cycling's statement, they actually do want Emily Bridges to be able to compete, and that includes sending her to the Commonwealth Games. So there isn't universal agreement on this, far from it.
No.
I'm sorry I meant every normal person, not every person in leadership.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's the people who are making the decisions.
As of the 29th of March, the British Cycling classified Emily Bridges as a male. Look, I'm of the opinion the world's gone mad. You know, I've got two daughters. You know, if they become good at their sport, would I be happy with them to compete, say, in the boxing ring with someone that was born a man? No, I wouldn't. I think we've lost all sense of what's right and wrong. I think trans rights need to be respected. But could we not set up trans events, trans games? Why do women need to lose their right? You know, to give trans rights, we shouldn't be taking it away from women. And I'm quite strong on that. And I think it's dangerous, and the fairness of women's sport is totally gone.
John Sargent, have we got this wrong? I mean, I was reading earlier today Emily Bridges' mother talking about her daughter having to potentially have police protection at the event this week. Now, of course, she's now not going to compete, but that's a pretty horrifying state of affairs, isn't it?
It certainly is, and that's the trouble. People are now so worked up about these issues, they immediately think, oh, I'm being asked to take sides. Not necessarily. In fact, the cycling organisation, the authorities, should simply be asking the question, how can we make sure that our sport is fair? Sport that isn't fair isn't sport. So it's cheating. They deal with this all the time in terms of establishing rules, working on categories. But everyone who watches sport wants to know, is it fair? If they're suddenly told, well, actually, some of them are allowed to have drugs, some of them are allowed to do this, some are allowed to do that, you know, I'm bored with this. I don't want to watch this so-called sport. Well, now, why can't the sporting authorities, instead of finding themselves in all this exciting big picture stuff about trans rights and this and that, just concentrate on what they know about, which is how to make sure that their sport is fair. If they stick to that, they'll come to the right conclusion.
I know, but Adam, if you look at that, then the only way to be fair is to go with my policy, which is that you can only compete in the birth that you were in the sex that you were biologically born. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter what gender you say you are, you cannot reverse male puberty, and even hormone treatment does not replace male puberty. That's a fact.
Sports Council says it's unlikely to level up and be fair. But we're going to end up, you know, in 5 years, where every world champ in the women's sport, whatever sport it is going to be a trans athlete, because the advantage is so high.
That's the risk, isn't it, Daisy? Well, that is the risk.
But actually, I'm much more cheerful about this, because I think this is a sign that common sense is prevailing. And yes, I completely agree with Adam that a few months ago or a couple of years ago, I think that's the way that, you know, the direction of travel was going. But now I think people can differentiate and say some issues of, you know, trans rights or trans arguments are not fair, but other issues are. And you don't have to be completely on one side of the argument or on the other.